You've got one take to find the one. Dating in a world where first impressions are everything. Ready to take one in one take? 3, 2, 1.
All right, so hi guys, hello everyone. So this is the brilliant team of People Under the Moon, written by Anjli Mohindra, with Gwilym Lee starring and Hal Chambers as the director. And I'm asking these guys a few questions about the process of making this beautiful piece. So I guess one for all of you really. What was the impact of lockdown like for you initially, and I guess over the last few weeks as well? Shall I start with? Let's start with Gwil.
Oh, all right, okay. I'd already started speaking. I was like, yeah. I suppose it's like we all talked about it. What was nice about this collaboration process actually is every time that we had a call with each other, it always started with like just a good long chat about how we're all coping with it, and that was really nice to speak to other like-minded creative people who are in the same situation and about how they're responding to it. So kind of beyond the collaboration and the work, that was just really good to offload. And I think what we found, or certainly what I found and I'm still finding, is that it hits me in waves. Like sometimes I'm really grateful for the time to read and write and, you know, be in the garden and cook and you know, do all the things that like make me happy. And then at other times I just get incredibly frustrated, and you just gotta ride the waves, I think. Yeah. Anyone else?
What about you, Anjli?
Yes, that all over. I discovered my coping strategy, which I hadn't recognized before, is to throw myself into just action, not necessarily helpful action, but just keeping my brain from really sitting in what's happening. And yeah, like that can be really lovely, and you realize you've got loads of time to read the books you've never read or listen to the podcasts you don't get to listen to. But I found myself tying myself up in knots of productivity because the productivity wasn't going anywhere, wasn't measurable, and also wasn't making me feel altogether very happy. But then this came along, and yeah, exactly what Gwil said, being able to connect with like-minded people who are artists as well, and who can't necessarily create on their own without a team or without something like a tangible thing to work on, has meant that we can just all kind of go through it together. And sit and talk about the bad stuff and the good stuff, and channel it into something that is productive and is visible. So yeah.
There was a really weird moment where we were all on the same sync. Do you remember there was one day we checked in and everyone was like, I feel like shit today. This is rubbish. We were like,
we had a really bad sleep.
None of us had slept. That's right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Hal, you said it was about the moon. You said it was about the lunar cycle.
Yeah.
Is that how the piece got its name?
Yeah.
Actually, maybe that was somewhere in my mind.
What about you? What was the impact of lockdown like for you then?
Well, yeah, I was mid rehearsals for something, and it's all been, you know, like, I don't know, it'll happen hopefully at some point later in the year. But yeah, just to go from that process of like making and doing stuff and being in a room, like, and then just being at home, it just made me realize, like, as creatives, you're sort of junkies for just like action. Do you know what I mean? Like Andrew was saying, like doing. And I found it very, very difficult in the first 2 weeks. And I have to say, like, projects like this have been a real lifeline. And I found myself actually quite busy in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And I've really enjoyed that, you know, as busy as one can be in lockdown. And yeah, this has been really good. And I feel like I've got my head above water, and I'm actually sort of enjoying parts of it now. And it's been nice to work in a different way, you know, and I don't think I've ever made a app-based show and, you know, created with people I've never met in the flesh before, and spent so much time. Like, we spent so much time chatting, and just been a really good vibe, been a good room, you know. But it's a very unique way of making something, and I'm going to see this as like, this was a really great opportunity to work in this way, which I never would have done otherwise.
No, and I guess we're all learning that how to get around this and do what we love with the restrictions in place.
It's nice to be really open with strangers in a way. It's nice that we'd never met each other, and then like from the first chat we were all sharing things like quite immediately about our feelings and stuff and what we're going through and how this is affecting us, and it was like really to do that with other than the people that you know.
Yeah, a bit like a rehearsal room, I suppose, but just
Yeah.
online. So I mean, so how did you all get involved? I suppose you've touched on it anyway, but what made you want to? Did you see the call out and think, I need some creative space, or was it just, did you not really think it through? Was it kind of a snap decision? How did you all end up involved? I can't actually remember.
It was a
whether
snap decision from me. I'd heard about it through my boyfriend, who had sort of caught the tail end when you'd already started setting up collaboration triangles, so to speak. And then, yeah, it was a knee jerk, like, oh my God, yes, something that I can use to channel all this need to do stuff. And then he sort of suggested doing it as a writer, because I had done the Royal Court Writers Programme a few years ago, loved it, but had got quite quickly discouraged by not having a frame to keep the momentum up. And just thought, if there's ever like an opportunity where you get to work with people, so the sort of, you're bouncing off other people, you're not just sat on your own writing in your own head. Yeah, it was a kind of a no-brainer, and I'm so glad I did.
Yeah, and the film's was beautiful, and then the reaction to it's been wonderful. Like it's nice to have that challenge, and then for it to be,
for sure. But I just know I wouldn't have written during this lockdown period. I've tried to write quite a lot over the past couple of years, and I just keep like throwing myself at any form of procrastination. So yeah, I really wouldn't have tried it out had it not been for virtual collaborators. I sound like I'm selling it. But
no, but it's having people to answer to, isn't it? It's having the fact that you've got to make it, because there's some people who you're making it for, and therefore you are more likely to get there.
Yeah, that's it.
And what about you, Gwilym? How did it happen for you?
Yeah, I mean, just an opportunity to share thoughts and reflections and questions that we have about this time. I mean, it's like, it's a pretty well, it's huge, isn't it, what's going on at the moment, and it's going to change the way that we live, and it's like a huge kind of shift in our lives, and like you need to respond creatively to what's happening in some way, I think, just to take stock and try and grapple with what's happening. So it was an opportunity to do that, and well, you and I had worked together before, Danusia, so I just thought, I'm going to hop on your wagon and just see what happens and just go along for the ride, basically. Yeah.
I was so glad you did. And Hal, I think somebody recommended you to me, didn't they?
Ben Kaplan, from working together at the RSC at the moment, and I'm a staunch believer in a deadline. You know, at university all those years ago, I was always the one who was up in the computer room till 4 a.m, getting it done. But I need a deadline. And I found, like Ange was saying, I was at home, I was planning projects that, you know, that could happen in the future. Well, what's the point? The theatre industry, who knows what will happen to that? I just felt like I was, my ideas were just bouncing into this vacuum. It's not really going anywhere. And I thought, you know, to have something tangible to work on. And as Will says, to respond to what's happening in these extraordinary times is kind of like, you know, without turning too pretentious, it's kind of like the responsibility of the artist to question what's going on, to capture like a time capsule of what the experience was, because we'll look back at this in a very different way. We maybe look back at it with great melancholy or a little bit of weird kind of nostalgia. Wasn't all that space really nice? But actually what this film does in a way through this one character is sort of document it almost in real time over about 3 or 4 weeks and go, that's actually what it was like. Because although Alistair's speaking, it's kind of an amalgamation of 3 of us talking and people who work together who we talk to as well.
Yeah, which actually kind of takes me to my next question, which I'm curious about. So how did the idea of it come about? Because you guys have talked a bit about how it really captures the kind of track of what's happened over the last few weeks, but through the perspective of an NHS worker. And I know you guys talked a bit about how you'd spoken to family and friends. So how did the idea originate? Was it always going to be through a doctor's eyes, or did you kind of come across that through your chats?
I think one of the early things that we shared, we set up a WhatsApp group quite quickly and started sharing things that we'd read and things that had just sparked a feeling of any sort in us. I remember Gwyl sent David Hockney article across, and I can't remember if it was Hal or Gwyl, but someone shared a diary of a doctor in the Times, I think it was.
Yeah, that's you, Hal. Yeah.
It was Hal, and it wasn't very hopeful, but it was very honest. And I think that's sort of like began the seed of an idea.
And you've got friends who are doctors, right? And my family, my dad's a doctor, my brother's a doctor, sister's a nurse, who are all, all kind of, they all informed, I don't know, they all informed where we were looking from, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm just stealing a few moments for myself at work to grab a bag of what's-its. How was the party last night? You look really gorgeous. Yeah, you look great. You look really great. Hi. How you doing? Yeah, I work on A&E. Yeah, it's been a pretty full-on day, actually. And I may or may not have just reported a family to social services for telling me they're against fucking vaccinating their kids. Is that evil?
And then the other strand of this, of course, is the online virtual dating app, which is entirely, well, not entirely, but is quite partly inspired by my brother, who is dating someone virtually. And is really smitten. I mean, at the time of recording he is, let's hope it stays like that way, but he feels this amazing connection. He's speaking to her night after night, like hours on end. He says it's a bit like being 14 again, when you used to get on your Nokia 5210 and be on the blower for hours upon hours. And he says it's really kind of amazing, but he also is like, he really wants to see her, but he can't. And he says he really identified when he finally saw the film, because he said, that is my life. You're living this extraordinary experience with someone who you've never met, but you're drawn closer together because of this sort of weird energy that's going on between everybody, of this sort of connection. So between those two ideas, a sort of idea properly formed.
Ah, great. And what about this countdown thing about only having time to sort of one take, which is just such a brilliant device? It really kind of takes the story. It means that he's forced to tell the truth, and that's quite interesting, because we're always assessing our images and changing them and taking photos and deleting them or touching them up. And I felt like that was such an exciting device that this character just couldn't take back what they'd said. So where did that come from?
I can't actually remember. I feel like we've all been quite in sync, and ideas have come out, and then we've all just kind of been drawn to them. So I can't actually remember, but if anyone wants to claim that, please do.
I think it was you, Ange, but we're doing the edit with our editor, Alan. It sort of really dawned on me that this was like this ticking clock, and the sort of time pressure of like trying to defeat or, flatten the curve with the coronavirus. It felt like Alistair was always under pressure. And the greatest note you can give, or the simplest note really you can give an actor, is just to play time. And that's essentially almost every time we gave a note back to Will was like, you got 2 minutes, and just get through the thoughts. And that pressure, I think, added a sense of kind of, I hope, tension to it all, but also allowed him to just cut, like the first couple of takes, for the videos he sends, he's just kind of trying to be this goofy version of himself, which we all do in public. But very soon he's not able to do that. And so it requires him, as you say, to be very honest.
Squirrel's got a fly in his room.
A very big fly. That was huge.
Yeah, big old wasp, I think. We wanted to create something that like happened like in real time, that didn't involve, although this actually did involve lots of editing, but like, you could believe that like this, it's just a man speaking to a camera, like that it wasn't like they're not set up camera angles and edits and things like that. It's a person speaking into a camera, which makes the audience like a character in the piece. So like, the audience becomes Amy, this girl that he's chatting to. Yeah. And so like it's not like the camera isn't like capturing performance. It's like the camera is part of the story. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And so like we tried to like come up with a very specific idea as to what the app was, and we thought about like names for it and how it would function, and like how it worked. Basically, we're trying to be really specific about that.
And that actually kind of leads me to what I was going to ask you, was about the whole process, because obviously as an actor, normally you're in a room with lots of people working together, and you sort of thrive on that interaction. So what was it like then? That script's made, you've worked with Hal a bit on it perhaps, and then you're having to like run around film, because obviously the film moves to a few locations as well. What was it like having to do that? And did you work with this 2-minute time limit, or did you, how did it?
Well, so you always see like how long the film is at the end of it, and you see that you, like, as you can tell, I'm a bit of a rambler and my mind doesn't always work particularly quickly, so I'm a bit like, the first take's always like 3 minutes kind of wittering on, and then like a little note would come back from Hal just saying, 2 minutes, come on, like, just that's how long you got. So yeah, you'd always look at how long the clip was at the end of it and see how far off you are, and it's good because it forces you out of out of your natural rhythms, and just like makes you kind of like drive through the thoughts and energize it. It's kind of it is. Sorry?
You got like a specific acting challenge out of it then, because you had to break up your natural rhythm to do this 2 minutes, get that dialogue out.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you just got to just drive through, and you can't like kind of rest on in any moment really. You've got to like get through to the next thought, or the next bit. But just technically filming yourself and seeing the image in front of you, like we did talk about like maybe doing it through this lens rather than the front lens, so that you don't see yourself. But I mean that has like technical issues in that you might be completely out of frame or something. So it turned out that was probably the only way to do it in selfie mode. But that's like really off-putting, seeing yourself. And the amount of times I started to take by going, "Hi Amy," no, hi Amy, and just like so many false starts. But and also like, when acting, you kind of like, you're used to taking your cue from other people and reacting to what they're doing. And obviously this is quite kind of one way. So that was quite a challenge to imagine the video that had been sent to you and imagine what's really specifically what you're responding to, so that it is in some way a conversation, or trying to achieve that. But yeah, it's tricky, definitely tricky. And then obviously, like, there are scenes where I start outside a hospital, a location that I'd found that was a hospital, which was actually the back end of a council gym in Tottenham, which got a little bit hairy after a while. So there was a time limit on how long we could shoot that scene. And I started outside this hospital and then ended up in my car, and and having to reset that over and over again. That was tough. And there's one take, obviously that's in the name of the app. So there's no editing. So if you fluff or if you don't nail one little bit, then you've got to go right back to the beginning. And the worst is you get to the end and then fluff a tiny bit at the end. It's so infuriating. It's like being in one of those big long tracking scenes in the West Wing. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't get it wrong at the end of the scene.
Yeah, don't be.
Yeah. I just compared my performance to the West Wing, guys. Just
you back-timed that walk so brilliantly. I thought that every time that you got in the car at just the right moment. So you must have had to like back-time it, which for anyone who doesn't know is playing the scene backwards so you know where to start. Like, did you find yourself having to do stuff like that?
Pure chance, just
pure.
Oh
my God, that was amazing.
Yeah.
The clapping just now was absolutely amazing. Oh my God. We all clapped for each other on the ward as well, and it was incredible. It was incredible. Few new human hands on their own could create such an incredible... Wow. Yeah, the last message I sent was weird. I'm sorry, geez. And yeah, I had a shave. They said I looked too caveman, apparently, and it was giving off the wrong messages. So, no, it creates a better seal for the PPE, for the mask, which just makes it more effective. Anyway, I've been thinking...
And then the other tricky thing is, like trying to coordinate 3 people at the same time to send a video, receive notes, take the notes on, and then kind of like... that was quite tricky, actually. And yeah, quite a challenge. How did you find that out? I mean, that would come in, like these videos coming your way, and like at all times of night as well, because we had a few shots in the evening as well.
Yeah. So there's no lighting department, so we can't just like do a night, we can't dress anything up. You got to shoot the scenes at a certain time of day. There's also we wanted him to shave because a lot of frontline workers have to cut their beards off because of the PPE. So once we had those first 4 scenes, we could not do anything about it. There's no wig department or beard department or whatever. We just had to go for it. It was definitely a bit, it was fun. It was like I get these flurry of of takes, and then Ange and I would frantically put voice notes on the WhatsApp and try and get back to Gwil as quick as possible. And then we did actually reshoot a couple of different scenes, and it was in sync generally, but we jumped around. But it was a really interesting way of doing things, and it allowed you that moment to actually take a pause and actually think about what the note is. Whereas often when you're in a theatre show, you have to think really, really quickly. You don't often get that time to just go, what is the note? What are we all trying to communicate here? And it was really good dialogue between the 3 of us. We would challenge each other, and we would agree or disagree, and it was just like being in a proper room, but digitally, which is obviously the point. But very, very the same feelings of being quite rigorous, feedback quickly.
So that's interesting. So that kind of leads me to asking you, Anjli. So you were involved in the whole process. You were voice noting throughout, back and forth, once you'd written the piece. And how was it? So this is obviously your first piece of writing, isn't it? In a way, or
first performed piece. Yeah.
First performed piece. So what was it like? Did you stay involved throughout the process? Did you kind of step back? And what was it like having that first experience, but remotely, as opposed to going and sitting in a theatre?
It's. I think doing it remotely helped me a lot. I have a very distractible brain, as I said before, and I don't think I would have got this done were we not in a lockdown. And remotely, it's been more focused, I guess, in that I've had time to crack on with draft or crack on with little bits, and then know that there's a call set up where the team are going to need a script for us to talk about. The sort of filming of it was really interesting. I've never experienced having to hand over a script and just sort of be open to the interpretation of it, and also just it's really exposing writing something, because I'm usually an actor. I guess I'm not familiar with the discipline of I don't know, I'm normally breathing life into somebody else's words, so, and that has its own sort of limits, but yeah, I don't know, I found it very exposing and very terrifying, and lots of room for imposter syndrome, but very encouraging. And yeah, handing it over and then seeing Gwil find things in it that I hadn't even put there, just insane. Or having Hal pick up on things that I hadn't thought of, or maybe had even got wrong, because I'd completely we sort of set out a timeline so that we wanted it to start before lockdown, with all the sort of optimism and hope of being able to go on holiday and meet up and go on a first date and slightly track what was happening in real time, and then sort of maybe go off into the future to give everybody a bit of hope with what was coming. But I had found myself getting in knots a little bit with the timeline of what happened when did Rishi Sunak suddenly become this sort of pin-up? When did the PPE stuff really start to have, because for a while we didn't think masks were helping at all, I think really early on. So yeah, just all of that, having people to bounce off, and also having to be on my feet.
Yeah, just picking up on that, Ange, it was not, it was written almost in real time, because when we started creating this project, a lot of the story didn't exist yet, i.e. literally in real life.
Yeah.
So that is quite unique. I don't know if I've done that to that extent with a project before, but every time we meet, there's something new to think about. That was really exciting. Yeah. Really
exciting.
And did it make you want to carry on writing? Do you want to write more now?
Yes, definitely. I think as well, which is the same I found with acting, you do something and you watch it back, and there's already a million things you'd have changed. There's a million things I'd written that I was like, shit, I don't like that, I want to change it. You sort of have to accept and then use that energy as momentum to drive into the next thing. I think, having not written the next thing, I don't know. But yeah, I definitely feel massively encouraged. It's genuinely been such an incredible experience working with real people who are at the top of their game as well.
Yeah.
Not just me in my head.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think so. Maybe just a kind of last question for you guys. Is what just something about this that surprised you, wasn't what you expected it to be, of the process of working digitally? Just what was the kind of, yeah, you weren't expecting to happen and did, good or bad, by the way?
I, I mean, I didn't expect it to be so easy, and I mean, it wasn't an easy process, but I didn't expect it to be like to be so. It just felt like a really natural collaboration, and like we could be really honest with each other really early, and so it was a really fruitful. And I didn't expect it to be quite so good, really. I don't know, like, that's a bit of a straightforward answer, but yeah.
No.
It's right how we didn't really have we didn't have a very specific idea of what we wanted to do when we first met. No one was like, oh, I want to write a story about dating in lockdown, and it really felt organic. I'm going to say it, but it really did. Like, it just came out of conversations, and it just like bloomed and emerged and became something, and then it just grew quite naturally, didn't it?
Yeah.
Which was great. It was really it was really great.
Any other interesting surprises?
Well, we did have like this pretty doomful moment like a week or so ago, and how when we kind of first signed on to a chat, and he was just like, what's going to happen with the theatre industry? And we were talking just now about Southampton Theatre as well, kind of going into administration, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, is this going to be how we work from now on? Like, is this the future for us? Which is pretty nuts. I mean, if it is, like, there are some things that work about it, definitely. There are also some things that you'd have to like tweak, and it's a definite learning curve. There are certainly things from my point of view that would be like, oh, that. So, for instance, like the sending and giving of notes is like, it worked really well, but like it's very interesting how much it's all about the energy of the moment. Like when you're a director and an actor working together, you kind of like, you need to be together, like just giving notes and doing them and giving them, and just like in like together in this with the same energy. And when there's a slight delay of bloody terrible Wi-Fi or 3G or whatever, and that both ways adds like, a 5-10 minute delay, then you kind of like, that's something that you'd have to try and
definitely
work on.
Being in a room and just thrashing out a scene with an actor and being like, what is this? Let's try it a few different ways. And that spark that exists between creatives it is there digitally. It does exist, but it's never going to be the same. Really.
Yeah, you're in a moment together as a director and an actor, and that's like, to try and replicate that energy is tricky with technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess there's no risk that we'll become so into working this way we won't want to go back. We're all still really keen to be in rooms together and make stuff.
Absolutely.
But it's cool to adapt, and I at times it's felt a bit like we're doing like our like A-level media studies pieces. Like it's like being in school again. A little bit. It's got a bit of that charm of like excitement of making something in a new way and in a very homemade way. But I mean, maybe we'll just get better at working digitally, but I hope we'll get some in real life action soon.
My dad's a doctor too, Amy. It's why I got into it, and he came out of retirement to do his bit, and now I can't do my bit for him. And he's on a ventilator. He's the master of dad jokes, by the way. And I can't help him. And I can't go near him.
3,
Oh, God.
2,
I can't wait to have a laugh with
So my last question, really light and silly. Well, not actually, it doesn't have to be silly at all. My last question is, what is a survival tip in lockdown that you have and can give? We've had people say things like really opposite things, like wear pajamas all day, get up and have a routine. Like, they're really quite different. But what do you think yours are?
I've really enjoyed the garden and like house plants and stuff like that, because you see them grow and develop and flourish, and they don't know what's going on. In fact, they're loving it because they're getting so much care and attention. So yeah, give life to stuff, man. Yeah.
We might have a risk of that anyway. I'm wondering about all the pregnancies that might happen after.
Well, that as well, yeah. Procreate.
Then you can watch things grow.
Yeah.
I think copying my favourite food. So I made an egg McMuffin, a McDonald's egg McMuffin, and like there's a few restaurants. I know there's another like pizza chain in London that was an indie restaurant, but now is a chain called Pizza Pilgrims, are doing DIY pizza kits. So you get all the bits, and it's called a frying pan pizza. But even if like you don't even buy a kit, you just do it from scratch. It's been really fun. Just put my own spin on stuff.
Like you're literally recreating the fast foods that you like, or like
yeah.
I'm doing fried chicken on Sunday, Anj.
My friend is getting home deliveries of Morley's to his house.
KFC.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
Might even put it in a greasy box.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gotta be in a greasy box.
How? What about you? Survival lockdown tip?
I mean, like, yeah, a bunch of things really. I mean, obviously connecting, like our RSC company are staying connected by doing their own version of Desert Island Discs. So it's called Isolation Island Discs. So Joe Klosker's our host, and he's hilarious. And so we're being interviewed. So keeping connected in fun, playful ways. But I mean, the other thing, my wife and I have been doing the Joe Wicks workout, PE with Joe every morning. And that has been, you know, just know it again, deadlines. Like I know I have to be there at 9 o'clock with about 1 million people. Thinking of, you know, proud of myself, working really hard. And I just feel much better. So, you know, a bit of exercise, bit of connection, keep you sane.
Do you do fancy dress on Fridays?
No, but I should do.
Yeah.
He always looks like he's suffering.
Yeah.
But thank God for Joe Wicks. He's a funny guy.
He's great.
He's like the PE teacher that we all wish we had, I think.
Yeah, maybe that's actually a good finisher, because it's kind of artists and public figures that have really devoted a lot of their time for free, keeping people entertained through this. So I'm just any opportunity to say that obviously it'd be good if after this there's a kind of appreciation of how much free work people have put in keeping spirits up. Also including like exercise yoga teachers doing your free yoga online, and singing teachers giving free singing lessons. That's just a message for Boris, really. But but you know, we've all relied on those things quite a lot through this, and it would just be nice to sort of come out of it and go, oh, actually there is some value in arts. Or that's just the last me putting
I think I've read somewhere that within Theatreland, i.e. the West End, for every £1 that's spent, something like you get 99 back or something. Theatre is so beneficial to so many people, but especially in the regions where it is really like beating heart of some communities. And you know, it's beyond just monetary. Like it is something that really matters to people. It gives them that sense of place and community, and I really hope they get bailed out and supported properly, because just a furlough scheme isn't going to last very long when you've got no punters coming through the door. So I hope there's some good discourse going on about how you can creatively bring people back, because they will come back if they feel safe. And we can make them feel safe by being creative. So that needs to happen. So we need to, I mean, I know that there's been some top people advising, but they need to be in those meetings, in those Cobra meetings, going, hey, we know how big improvisations work, and we know how to bring people together creatively. Let's do this on a scale that keeps us alive.
We know how to balance the space.
Yeah, we're very good at that. Great. Well, thank you so much, guys. The film's excellent, and obviously today's going to be its spotlight day, which will be exciting, and I just hope we see more of Anjli's writing in the future, and I hope everyone's had a good time.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks very much. Thanks for getting us together, Danusia.
Thank
you so much.
Yeah.
Bye.
Cheers.